This is Glenn.
This is Alexi. We just wanted to jump on here and let everyone know that this is the end of season 1.
It's been a great first season, some great friends, some guests, and lots of learning in our first trip around the block podcasting, and we're going to take a little break to get things ready for season 2.
But this isn't a dead stop for us. Stay tuned for a few podcast shorts with my dad and I before the beginning of our second season.
Podcast shorts, mini episodes, mini-sodes, mini shorts,
Podcast, mini short-sodes, etc.
shortisodes. So thank you for all your support. It's been super fun and meaningful, and we're really excited to keep it going in season 2. So we're going to see you very soon. Thank you.
Bye.
The past few years have been the most challenging and rewarding for me in my recent day job career aspirations. Challenging and rewarding. When getting asked the cliche, "how's the job?" question during frequent small talk encounters, I developed a templated answer of, "It's good. It's hard, but it's good." And that seemed to bother some people I knew. Why do I need to say it's hard? Well, because the truth is, it was challenging and rewarding, good and hard. The truth isn't always comfortable, and I guess not what we're always prepared to hear. Jessica Lemmon has built a career from her youthful, wide-eyed aspirations through the mountainous rise and fall hard knocks of opportunity, sought out, given, and taken away. As founder and CEO of Lemmon Entertainment, she translated early success with artist management and event production into career-shaping opportunities with the Lemmon Stage at the Vans Warped Tour, Live Nation, the Junos Awards, the Grey Cup, and many, many more. And for every impressive initiative and achievement that she shared, Jessica had the vulnerability to open the book on how ageism, sexism, jealousy, and insecurity presented equally significant challenges and roadblocks to her career. If you're interested in real stories, not stereotypes, the rewards always come with challenges. When you tell your story, it will likely have been good, hard, but good. And if you're lucky, when you tell that story, you might find it still wrapped in beautiful optimism and remnants of wide-eyed aspirations for what you love to do. My name is Glenn Erickson. This is Almost Famous Enough. Thanks for spending your time with us. This is Jessica Lemmon.
All right.
You good? Are we good?
We are all set.
Okay. Jessica Lemmon, CEO and founder of Lemmon Entertainment. But what I'm actually immediately happy about is I just realized your little name tag on our recording platform says Jess Lemmon, which just makes me really happy because I always called you Jess. And I'm like, but we are in a way reconnecting. And it's one of those things that I'll often ask somebody, do I still get to call you Jess? If we haven't talked on a regular basis for 10 years or whatever it was. So if I call you Jess, I'm assuming then it's okay partway through this whole thing.
It is definitely okay. And yeah, I think until you bring it up, I forgot that, yeah, you did always call me Jess, but maybe that's why I always felt just like a connection to you as you just went there right away. I've never liked Jessica. Most people call me Lemmon these days.
But it's always been Jess for me. You're right. And yeah, I always go right to it. So, Jess, you are president, founder, CEO, founder, Lemmon Entertainment, which has a lot of other factions. I want to talk about all of that in a quick second. But since you just sort of identified that we go way back and we have this we've always had this real ease of friendship and relationship, which I appreciated, we might as well just have fun and get that out of the way and let everybody listen to us reconnect for a second. I feel like the last time we hung out was 2013. I think I've seen you since then, but I think the last time we hung out was 2013. I think when I think of you, Jess, there's two things that stick out of my head. Okay, I'm going to tell you both of them. The first one is the last time I saw you. I think it's 2013, North by Northeast in Toronto. You had moved there, been there for a little bit. I'm pretty sure that was the time this happened. But I connected with you. I said, I'm in town for the festival like I always did when I came out. Do you have any time to hang out? And you, of course, did, but you're always super busy because you were getting your foot in the door back then, I think, with
That's
a lot of
right.
things in Toronto. And North by Northeast was one of the big festival conferences in the country. And that night, we wanted to go see some people at, shoot, I can't remember. It wasn't the Great Hall. It was, what's the big music hall there? It doesn't matter. That part doesn't matter. But you did take me and you're like, we're going to go. Edwin from I Mother Earth had a bar,
Oh my
and you're like, we're
goodness.
gonna
Yes, that bar's
go to
long gone.
Edwin's bar,
Yeah, I
and
think
it
it was
was like
called
all rock and
Tattoo
roll,
something.
like,
Yes.
was it? And it had like the cutouts in the elevated cutouts in the wall with dancing girls in them and stuff. It was like kind of a trippy bar. Like I was like, holy shit. It felt like more, because this happens sometimes, but that's where I was like, Toronto trying to be New York. That's like, that bar felt like Toronto trying to be New
Absolutely
York.
did. Yeah, that's long gone. I forgot all about that place.
Yeah, well, this is what's fun about going down memory lane is I'm gonna make
Yeah.
you remember things you totally forgot. And so like that's one of them because I thought that was hilarious and I just had fun because we were like cab hopping all around the city and that's like my favorite thing at the festivals in Toronto is to like just cab hop to as many things as you can. And you were always real fun on those. But the other thing that stands out to me about you that's always been one of my favorite memories is all the way back to I think it might have been January 2010. My band, The Wheat Pool, had released our second record, Ontario, in the fall of 2009. And we were going to record our second video for it. And we were recording that video. And my friend Greg came out from Vancouver, and there was fresh snow all over the place. And we had this concept of like one of the brothers in the band, because we were like doing all the, you know, the somber, solemn walking in black and white. And then you figure out towards the end, it's like this thing where he was actually dead. It's almost, you know, it's kind of this like, because we had like the little
I think it was
memorial
the first
thing at the end of
funeral
the
I'd
video.
ever been to.
Well, I just remember being like, I need someone who is going to stand out in a black and white film. I need like a young woman to be like as if it was the female partner left behind kind of person. And you had always stuck out to me and I knew you. I didn't know you terribly well, I don't think, but
Mhm.
you had like you had a whole bunch of photos. You would go and do, I think, photo shoots with your friend and you were so photogenic. And I'm like, this is the right person. And you were more than willing. And here's my favorite thing about that. Not that we did a video and I'm taking this moment to be able to tell everybody about my music video from 16 years ago is that, do you remember, they've torn it down now. We had you walk in that old hotel
Ritz,
in the middle
yeah,
of Edmonton
motel. Yeah, white mud jaggers.
and you were wearing like practically stilettos through the snow. You were very graceful, by the way. And you had to keep doing this slow walk over and over and over for us. But then Greg asked if you can produce a tier. And in like minus 20 winter in Edmonton, and you did. You produced a tier for us in minus 20 weather. He got the close up. It's in the
It was
video.
definitely
It was
crying for
incredible.
the cold, not good acting skills. It was-
Yeah. Well, maybe a combination. But that's my other seminal memory of Jessica Lemmon in my life. So
That
I
is
had
so
to walk
funny.
you
I
down.
think one of my first, and I wouldn't have even called it that at the time, anxiety attacks was finding wardrobe for that video shoot. I had nothing. I had absolutely nothing. So
Oh,
whatever I
really?
ended up putting together was, yes, stressed me out more than you would have ever known.
Well, now everybody listening who's like, I got to know what the wardrobe choice ended up being. The song is called Lefty
Yep.
by the Wheat Pool. And I am literally unsure if it's actually even on YouTube still. It probably is somewhere.
Well, I'm
Someone
definitely
might be
gonna
able
go
to find
look
it.
for it after this. You're right. We
I'm
didn't
gonna too. Yeah.
we did not know each other very well at all. It was at a time that I was so interested in the music scene of Edmonton, but I was very green. I lived in rural Alberta at the time myself, so I didn't have a lot of connections through Edmonton, but the girl in the photo shoot that you referenced was actually the first artist I ever managed. And she begged me to be her manager. I by no means thought I was qualified. However, I took a step back and thought, I know more than she does. So I guess why not? Why wouldn't this work? So when that relationship started. It was a organic way for me to open up some doors in the Edmonton music scene. And Steve
Mm-hmm.
Durpak in Edmonton, he was the biggest Wheatpool fan. I think he suggested your music to me, and I did. I became a very, very big Wheatpool fan after that. Probably went to every one of your shows, and
That's
through
really
that
sweet.
ended up connecting and getting to meet you. And I do remember early on just being very, I was admired you a lot for not only the work that you did as a guitarist in the band, but you had Shameless, the label going at the time. It was Shameless,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Correct.
And you were actively involved in other things in the music scene. And I saw you doing so much, and it just was very inspiring to me at that stage in my journey.
Well, I guess the podcast is over. That's all I needed you to say and tell everybody. Toot my horn. I'm just kidding. That's very sweet of you, Jessica. I appreciate it. And yeah, Steve has been a great fan and supporter all along. And it's nice hearing a story that he was influencing other people. Like, who doesn't want to hear that too? But I remember also, like you said, you started getting involved. So I remember encountering you, I think through Alberta Music, and you being involved in some events and working with them, if I'm not wrong, at the time as well. So I kind of knew you. We would talk, we would see things. And so this is a great place to start the conversation, because now you have this company that I've watched grow over this time. And you said, like, I was just like a young person from rural Alberta, in the city. Maybe I knew a little more about some music than the other person, and you started plugging yourself in to learn things. You also had a really cool young punk rock chic look about you with your black hair, and I just thought you fit the industry really well. And then I probably subconsciously did the stupid privileged white male in the business thing, where I just assumed, this is going to make me sound terrible, that because I've always really liked you and respected you, and yet I probably still made assumptions like you were just sort of hanging around for the couple of different areas that you liked in the business. Do you know what I mean? Because if you weren't on the stage playing music, there weren't a lot of women on the other side of it.
No.
So I don't think I
There was
ever
maybe
quite.
one woman on the other side of it in Edmonton at that time, and her name is Shauna. She's still very active in the live music scene, and because of her, I actually felt there was no opportunity for me at that time. So I appreciate you kind of acknowledging that. And for me, it took till I was in my probably actually early to mid 30s before I was able to look back on it and see how very difficult it was being a woman in this space. And also in my mid 30s started to feel very sad for old, younger me, who came into this industry so bright-eyed, so passionate, and with so much care. And my only intention was to help everyone within it and do the best work possible. I grew up an honors student in school. My parents thought I was going to university to become a doctor or a lawyer. But I found music very early on as a safe space for me. Specifically, the live music punk rock community in Edmonton was the safest space that I had in my life. And that's what drove me into the music business. But I didn't have much of an education on what I could actually do in the music business. So the only opportunities that or the thing that I wanted to be was on stage with the crew laminate. That was something
Yeah.
and I didn't really know what that meant, and let alone the business side. So at an early age, 16, 17, 18, I promoted for my friends' bands. I helped send out their demos to radio stations. I sold merch at shows. I did anything and everything just to be around the music. Not even at that time thinking about a career in that space, but it was, again, my safe space, and I loved the people that were within it. And unfortunately, the minute I started to work or formalize or try to have a presence in the music community as an artist manager, it got pretty dark pretty fast, in the way that I was just constantly battling judgments. And even more than that, a really good example actually of what I'm sure a lot of women, hopefully not as much today, but dealt with, is I worked my ass off for Live Nation as a runner. For those listeners that don't know, a runner will usually like pick up artists from the airport, transport to their
Yeah.
hotels, help with groceries. And I got asked to do a short tour with Headley, a band at the time, that was doing an Alberta tour. And for me, this was, oh my God, a dream come true. I'm doing a small tour. I picked up the rental vehicle, I picked up the promoter, and we went to do our first show. I made sure everything was perfect for that event. I was a production assistant, and yet I never went on the bus with the band. I didn't go into dressing rooms. For me, like being professional was the most important. And you brought it up. I had a look to me. I was young. I was a girl that loved music. I got my first tattoo at 18, but every time I was on a music job, I was there to do a very good job. And at the end of that tour, I drove the promoter rep back to the airport, and he looked over at me and said, "I will never hire you again. You are too distracting for the crew." And for me, that was
Wow.
the harshest thing I could ever hear, because I thought my doors were opening. I was like, I went from being a one-off showrunner in Edmonton to being on my first tour. I was so proud of the job I did, the problems I solved. I didn't talk to any of the crew. I didn't do anything, but I did reject this promoter rep who wanted to share a bed with me on that tour. And so I could only assume that the attention I did get from an all-male crew that was on that tour to him was enough that he didn't like it. And so that was the very early beginning of what was something I faced again and again, of just opportunities being closed for me simply because of control others had. But the reputation that would start to get back to me about myself was something I had to battle for a very long time. Still do.
Well, I appreciate you telling that story, because I was going to see if there was an example when you said things got dark really fast. And that is an incredible example. To be honest, I thought it might be going a different direction when you said Headley and and the fiasco that blew up with lead singer Jacob and his indiscretions. But also not surprising, unfortunately, the way.
Yeah, I've got lots of opinions around that one too.
Well, I mean, and this is just the thing is, you obviously fit in really well. I had felt from the first times I met you, you fit in well because of that enthusiasm and that passion. And you had good social EQ and charm and all things that are important in this business sometimes, as much as the know-how.
Absolutely.
But you were obviously like, that's a very early stage to get the message that it's only going as far as you look and as far as whatever we judge on the package. So, I mean, that leads to a few things, because I'm sure that might be a thread through some of these things in your story. So, because you're in Edmonton and you're doing those things, and then you moved to Toronto. And I knew, like, and again, this is a move that artists make, right? To try to make it. So I remember always thinking, what is Jess doing? Like, is she going to Toronto just because she's bored of Edmonton, or is there real opportunities? But I didn't have as much contact with you anymore to know what that move was. So all I've seen in the larger arc of your career, Jess, was you getting involved big time in a lot of different areas, you moving to Toronto with the same bright-eyed goals and aspirations, where I've usually seen everybody go there, get crushed 9.5 times out of 10. And then I see, I don't even know how many years, you can tell me, down the road, where all of a sudden there's a Lemmon Stage on the Vans Warp Tour through Canada. Yeah. I'm like, holy shit, how did she land that? Is that literally your stage named after you? And then I'm like, well, of course it is. And then starting to see that hang around in some different areas, the name pop up more and more, start to see you and the things you're putting out there as Lemmon Entertainment, and continue to see a trajectory of what I thought was going with a skill in just sort of production management and building become like so many more things along the way, which I have found so incredible and so inspiring. And so let's just keep going from right there and tell me about the move to Toronto and what
Yeah, I
the
want
goals and
to.
the
This is exciting
aspirations.
for me, actually, as I haven't revisited. But the reason I went to Toronto was where I wanted to go was Vancouver. But similar to seeing a lot of people move to Toronto and get spit back out, I had seen a lot of people that had moved to Vancouver and it was too
Yeah.
expensive and they came back to Edmonton. At that time of my life, first, I noticed there was nowhere for me to go in the music industry in Edmonton. There was a smaller, and I think live, I was very drawn to live. And at that time, I was doing some work working on local music festivals, getting my hand in absolutely everything. But I respected anybody that was ahead of me working in the jobs that I wanted to have, such as being able to run a show. And unless those people were gonna literally have a jammer and pass, there was no opportunity for me. So Toronto, I didn't know anybody except for one management company, because at that time I had already done a little bit of touring with Our Lady Peace. And I knew that Vancouver looked like a dead end. I knew the music industry was primarily in Toronto. So I did it. I packed up, I had a little hatchback car, packed it up and went with really no plan other than I had saved up enough money that I would not work for 3 months so that I could volunteer at both Canadian Music Week and the Juno Awards. I did think in the move to Toronto that I would be bartending for about 3 years while I used my spare time to get to know the industry there. I was fully prepared to have about a 3-year journey into the industry because that's what it took in Edmonton. I had to really prove myself to even be welcomed in a paid position there. So what ended up happening, though, is I did those volunteer roles and very quickly realized that all of the skills that I developed in Edmonton I was rising to the top in Toronto. So everybody would promote me to like the supervisor of volunteers. I was offered 3 jobs after Canadian Music Week. One as an assistant at the Tragically Hips management company, one as a promoter rep for a EDM promoter, and one as a tour manager for a pop artist. And again, I was in shock. I was so happy, couldn't believe the opportunities that I had only dreamed of having. And then I was just stressed out about which one do I take. And at that point in my life, I was, again, back to being inspired by someone like you that did many things. I figured out how to do them all. And I did. I took all 3 jobs, and that gave me
I love that.
yeah, that was a really exciting period in the music business for me because I was now getting into the music business. Everybody in Edmonton told me I would fail. The people that I had around me in Edmonton in the music space that I really thought were supportive, as soon as they found out I was going to Toronto, they all were just like, you're going to be small fish in a big pond. Good luck. Like, there wasn't support. And that just drove me even harder to go prove everybody wrong. But sadly, that is a pattern that followed me throughout. But at that moment in Toronto was so exciting. I was exposed to so much, but it was also the first time I was entering the music business. Everybody also warned me about being not so great. And young and naive, I refused to hear that. I was like, no, it's awesome. I'm going to make it awesome. I love it. This is where my heart is. But as I started to formalize relationships in these office environments, I was exposed to a lot of business operations that I couldn't agree with. My values were against. I think I went into the music business very much with an artist's first perspective. Because I came up with artists, I've always supported artists. That's who I ultimately care about. I identify with crew and artists and the tour bus much more than a suit. And as I started to get into these environments, I was really let down because I started to see that I couldn't learn from anyone above me and I couldn't operate in the ways that I was being directed and still, hold the integrity that I have and the care. So I quickly, I think I ended up jumping back and doing some touring as I kind of realized, wow, these office spaces aren't some place that I want to be. I worked as a freelancer. I was still very involved in many different things. And another battle I faced early on in my story in Toronto was, Jess, you do too many things. You're never going to be successful. You have to just stop selling merch. or no one's going to see you as a manager. And to a degree, they were right. The Toronto market was very different than Edmonton, where it was easy. It was accepted and almost like celebrated when I was doing all of these different things and keeping busy, and kind of it was just the way there. In Toronto, you needed an identity, and it didn't work what I was doing. So I listened to a lot of that advice and started to try to think of, okay, what do I want to be? What do I want to become? And at that time, I kind of put all my focus into being a very good live event producer. And then in that time, I decided festivals was really where I wanted to be. I started applying for opportunities and jobs, and I got offered a job with AEG to work on their music festivals one summer. The same day I got offered a job with Live Nation to work as a promoter assistant. And that I've got a few times in my life that I had to choose, and those were very tough things, but I went with Live Nation, and then that became my first really fully committed role and led to Lemmon Stage. So if you want to get into where that started, that did happen at Live Nation.
From Live Nation. Okay, let's take one quick sidebar. That I'm interested in your perspective, since you're very observant and intuitive at the same time. You had mentioned in there, you realized that I wasn't going to learn from those above me. And so there is an aspect that's pretty universal, I think, of two things. One is in a lot of corporate world, which the music business is actually quite run corporately in the suits and in the offices. You know, there's so much, like the music business, I should actually say, is so, like, nobody went to school for that stuff, right? Like they just mostly got into it. Some of those people maybe had some marketing degrees, and some people had some business degrees at the top, and then they just found their way in at some point. But a lot of other people just found their way in and started working their way up by perseverance and attrition, not by skills or leadership abilities. And what's so interesting to me is that all the people who had got in that way, how little work and effort has been done by them to change how well you can train others up and take responsibility for it, right?
Yes.
For people below them. And I guess I was just wondering if that's accurate in your mind. Like, not making excuses for them, but I feel like imposter syndrome is so rampant as well as a result of nobody actually got trained for this, and you work your way up, and then all of a sudden you have responsibility for things that you don't feel inside you have any business being responsible for. But if I show any weakness, I'm out, because it's also very thin margins in the world. And that fear also drives the decision of not letting somebody else, being threatened of someone who could take your space.
Absolutely. And it makes
now
me so happy
you throw
hearing
in the fact that you're a woman, you know.
Exactly. And at the time, again, I didn't think being a woman was holding me back. I thought my age was the biggest battle that I was always fighting. I was running my mouth to show my education of what I knew in spaces versus I refused. I think part of me refused. I did grow up with artists like Biff Naked and people that were very woman power. So I never wanted to admit that the woman thing was a weakness. But what you said, and I truly think it is one of the biggest, if not the biggest problems in the music industry right now, is the lack of educated professionals in the leadership roles. And again, the power and everything that they've garnered over time. A lot of the things that I went through, and I've seen so many other individuals go through, artists go through, it's not even that there's malicious within it. It is just like you said, the being a good bullshitter has been able to get these people further than any work or develop skills. And when someone like myself comes in, very naive, just doing everything the best way I possibly can for them, if I'm doing a great job, I am exposing them. And
exactly,
I didn't realize that until much later in my career. How could I be being treated this way or shut out these ways if I'm only working for them and trying to make them shine and make them more money? I was always just trying to look for validation from those that I was working for. Yet I was able to see just how much of their day-to-day was pure bullshit, and also just whatever was easiest. And I think that's when I chose one thing I'll always remember working in one management company was it was a business deal that went down. Basically, it was like one manager whose agent represents his whole roster. And it wasn't even a fit for that band. Like the band itself was one genre. I knew the genre that ex agent represented and had a network in. And then for the manager just to give them this artist and not even try to build a strategy for them, because it was just like, that stuff was really hard and shocking for me as I made my way up in the industry, to be like, wait, where's the strategy? That's going to kill this artist. That doesn't help them. And I started realizing how these teams, and I feel like I'm going off in a different direction here, but the teams of these artists weren't always working in the best interest for them. And yet the artists trust their teams immensely and are giving them all the power. And yeah, I had a lot of challenges throughout those learnings.
Well, I mean, okay, so this is great though, because I always thought it's incredible that you've built what you built in Toronto. This isn't hyperbole. I've felt so proud of you, though I don't have a right to pride or whatever, but that's just the feeling I've had of you, because I know how hard it is, how many people, like we said, go off to the promised land, so to speak, and get chewed up or spit out, or if there's small fish, big pond, et cetera, happens. But you have some version of tenacity that didn't let that happen. Maybe there's pieces of luck, like all of us in this business, that happened too. So and it's funny that you said that one of the criticisms was, Jess, you're doing too much, because if I just look at your, like your press work for what Lemmon Entertainment is, and that you are, you're also, I mean, you're all these things, right? So you're the branding, promotional company, kind of sub company part to that, right? You're the Lemmon Stage and the pieces that kind of stuff is. So you have like multiple pieces that and initiatives over the years, which again, from a business perspective, somebody might say, what is the thing that you actually do most of the time? Might be. But so before we get to what that truth is, because I think that's an interesting connector between your past and even the way you're running things now, and you just choose to persevere. So I know that you get this Lemmon Stage going. Is Lemmon Entertainment an actual thing then, or is the stage just like an initiative that's kind of showing promise and you're investing time in it? And what's the connection between that and actually founding a company like you had?
Well, I would tell you, I would never. One of my first jobs was at Staples Business Depot, and I worked in the copy center with a lovely woman who said, Jess, your company needs to be called Lemmon Entertainment. And I was like, she's like, Lemmon is just the best word. And I was like, gag, garbage. Never would I ever. Also, I've always been somebody who I really am not. Even doing this podcast is hard for me. I don't like being front face. I like to work behind the scenes, and never would I think to put my name on my business. But what happened was Lemmon Entertainment was my invoicing name. I was a freelancer. I was working and I needed to have a billing company, and I set it up as Lemmon Entertainment, and it was never supposed to really see the light of day. When I worked at Live Nation, I think it was on my first week, I worked for a promoter there who came by my desk one morning and said there was a band from Kitchener-Waterloo that he was friends with. And he was like, this band needs to get on Warped Tour. Make it happen was my task for the day. So through my discovery of Warped Tour that was coming to Toronto that summer, there was no spot for this band to play. They were fully booked and there was nothing. But I knew from my walk to my desk every day, Live Nation owned an SL100, which is a small modular stage. From my years of touring with bands and being friends with bands, I knew that any band would be willing to play the Warped Tour for free. So I was scared of my boss, basically. I was told no from Warped Tour that this band could have a spot, so I had to get creative. So what I put together and pitched was, what if Toronto was the only Canadian stop on the Warped Tour? So I pitched to Kevin Lyman, what if we had an all-Canadian emerging act stage for your festival here? It's going to cost you nothing. I'm going to look after everything. It's just going to be there. Can it be a part of it? And he said, I don't see why not. And there wasn't really room on the festival site for the stage, but I was like, they'll play the lineup. The lineup has to wait. I used to wait in the Warped Tour lineup. I loved Warped Tour. So I was like, fuck, if a band's playing to me while I'm waiting to get in, that's that's amazing. And
Yeah,
that's what we did. We set up a
brilliant.
stage to the lineup. And when I told my boss, he said, yep, go for it. So we created, we just started scouting bands. I think I had a few in mind right away that deserved this opportunity. And we had that emerging stage at the festival. Now, it was probably 2 weeks later, someone came out of the office from Live Nation Marketing, who I hadn't even worked with at the time, and he said, the stage is going to be in a paper or an ad in the paper this week. It needs a name. And my boss yelled out, Lemmon Stage. And a logo was created from the marketing department, and suddenly I had a stage. And for me, again, this is beyond my wildest dreams coming true. This is
Yeah,
something it was so true to me of being able to support the punk rock band community that I grew up with, to be able to
yeah.
like give a space for 10 artists to play. But very quickly, I also experienced some of the worst hate by having the opportunity. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I worked in an office where there were other women, and it was sadly the woman in the office that I think they couldn't understand. I was the new girl. I had a stage with my name
Hmm.
on it.
Hmm.
It was a special project. And I just started the bullying, the noise. Like, it was so hard for me. And that was a really challenging time, as much as it was really rewarding, because I started to
Yeah.
see how, like, even being on the same team, it's not always enjoyable. So that summer, we got the stage up. It was very important to me to align it with a cause. So that was the first project. I brought mental health into the mix. We partnered with another local not-for-profit. It went off incredibly. And for as long as Warped Tour came back, we had Lemmon Stage. We ended up doing a couple little tours, bringing the artists down to Buffalo. And it was just when social media was getting started. And the following and support for Lemmon Stage was massive. So it just, like, it worked with zero budget and creative brain, and obviously a hustle of playing all the roles and convincing my friends to get involved. That's what really made it happen. But that is what I learned with the artists back in the day.
Mm.
Like, so it was easy for me. It was so exciting for me. And then 9 months later, I decided Live Nation was not a healthy workplace for me. And that's when Lemmon Entertainment was born. And it's because of the success of
Mm.
Lemmon Stage that when I was getting a business started, the last thing I had time to think about was, what are we going to call Lemmon Entertainment? So it was Lemmon
Yeah.
Entertainment. It was already my billing name anyways. And that's, I decided to start a company where I could control the culture a
Yeah.
little bit more. And yeah, that's when we were founded.
Okay, I've been dying to hear that story forever. So I'm so happy to finally hear how the Lemmon Stage and all of that got going and where it was born from, and then how it's now connected directly to how you started the company. So the company obviously boasts more than just production or live event management. You talk about like working with artists. There's lots of different things that you can do if you're good at any version of production or event planning, event management, everything in the fabrication and technical and on-site world, the people that you see always dressed in all black in every area of a crew, right? Like, your
Yeah.
knowledge obviously is extensive in that, but then, you're boasting the marketing, the strategic side, which only comes with time spent, I think, in this industry, to start to know, if you have that kind of a mind, how to apply that thinking. Obviously, the burgeoning or the exploding world of social media as a primary awareness tool in promotions and investing in marketing that way. The people who get it might have some opportunities come quicker. But this is all coming under the umbrella of what you are growing Lemmon Entertainment into.
Yeah, well,
So I'm wondering
yeah, go ahead.
what things came first. Sorry.
Yes, well, I would say that I was getting the most fulfillment in the live event space. And so when Lemmon Entertainment started, I saw it was right when experiential marketing was becoming a thing, and big brands were
Mhm.
getting involved in music festivals, big brand activations, or a brand would launch with a music series in different venues. And I was doing a bit of that work during my time at Live Nation, and really quickly learned that I was good at it because I could polish up and speak corporate language, or I could speak rock and roll to the
Mm-hmm.
audio engineers and get things achieved that way. So when Lemmon Entertainment launched, that's what I based it on, working kind of where corporate meets live events. And I had, a few, I learned really early how to create more opportunity out of an opportunity. So if someone asked me to sell merch, it's like, well, what else do you need help with? Or if somebody wanted my help stage managing, well, I have a team. Like I would just really make myself available, use the relationships that trusted my work and try to develop more out of it. A big goal that I had when it was so scary to leave Live Nation. My dream was to work at Live Nation. I didn't know a lot about even when I worked at Live Nation, I didn't even know what an agent did. Like I never knew much about the music business. I just knew Live Nation was the name on all of my concert flyers and tickets that I went to. So it was really scary for me to leave what was my dream job. So as I created Lemmon Entertainment, it was very important to me to be seen that it wasn't just me anymore. I wasn't taking a step back. I was taking a step over, and I was still a team. I could do whatever Live Nation was doing, just at a boutique level. And so when Lemmon Entertainment was founded, I hired some people, but I started hiring a lot of young people, and I wanted to be a mentor that I never had. So I partnered with the schools in Ontario. They would tell me, they would place their students with me, and I would let them shadow me on live event productions and stuff. Very quickly after building, I had an office above the Great Hall in Toronto. I had a staff of, I think, 5 people. We set up the office. We were doing all sorts of stuff. And out of nowhere, I had a promoter, Jacob Smid. I'll give him a shout out because this was another life-changing moment of my life, is he recommended me for an opportunity with an agency out of New York for a global project. And that project was called Corona Sunsets. At the time, it was a brand new music festival concept that hadn't started. But Corona was always a sponsor for the Tomorrowland Music Festival. And Corona was like, we want something like this. And so it really was the redheaded stepchild of a project from this agency. They really didn't have time for it. It was a corporate project, but my name was thrown in the hat. And long story short, I got it, which the conditions of the job, though, were I had to leave Toronto, the office I had just built, the team I just built, and move to New York and start the project in 2 weeks. And so instead of me shutting down what I had started, it was like, no, I'm going to take this. We're going to still keep the business moving. At the time, it was a 1-year contract in New York. So I was like, I'm going to have to come back to the business anyways. I empowered my team, was able to support as I got Corona Sunsets going. And then very my style, instead of just playing the project manager role at the time, I decided that Lemmon Entertainment could serve the artist services role that the project needed. So that was a very transitional and kind of ignited growth in my career again, because I went from being the live entertainment kind of producing behind the scenes partner to now being in charge of it was a 5-event program with a DJ competition that was all across the globe. And I had to put together the teams, both on the ground executing the events, as well as the teams putting together the actual brand and look and feel of the festival. So it was my first time working with creative agencies and all that stuff. And concurrently had to manage the business of Lemmon Entertainment and a team of a bunch of juniors that I decided to take on and mentor. And so our business at Lemmon Entertainment leveled up very fast. When you're starting to work with a big company like Corona, now you're getting other attention and we're getting new business. But probably one of the biggest challenges I faced in my career was when I was starting to get that level of business, but I had to be behind all of my juniors to deliver at my Lemmon standard, we call it. And that was when the pressure started, I think, for me. But oh my gosh, what rewarding opportunity. By the way, this Corona Sunsets was 5 beach festivals. So and my first time leaving North America.
That's pretty cool though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty big brand. Like you've had an opportunity to work with a lot of pretty big brands, like some of the biggest brands in Canada. Like you've obviously worked with, I think, Grey Cup, Junos, like these big sort of event brand names. And more recently, Invictus Games, which has obviously grown in its reputation and you're a part of. But you didn't go to business school.
No.
Like how did you figure out, like I remember when I was freelancing in my designer digital marketing space, going to my friend and saying, I'm getting busy, like when do you know when to hire somebody? And he was like, decide if you really want to be a boss first, because as soon as you do, you'll stop being all the things you're passionate about and you'll spend half your time being a boss. What was that like for you? Like, how did you figure out the business side of hiring people, and how did that change
No, all of
your life
it's
a
all
bit?
quite stupid, and I don't recommend that anyone really takes my path. I had a lot of survival skills from a very young age, and I also got fueled by all of the no's and had the punk rock attitude of I can make it. And I also had made my literal dreams come true more than once. In the Edmonton to Toronto transition, my dream when I was was younger and started was to tour on a bus. And for me, that was unattainable. And so when that happened, I like fulfilled what I thought was impossible. And then shortly after that, I reformatted my dream to just be like, I want to have a job that pays me to travel around the world. That happened. I had an expense account. I was able to wine and dine the partners that I was trying to convince to work with us. The Lemmon Stage happened. I met my biggest heroes. Like everything I ever dreamed of happened. And most of it happened because I calculated it to happen, or I was very involved in the path of those things getting fulfilled.
Yeah.
So what that did was it did give me a lot of confidence in how I navigated my career. I was always very aware and a bit of an insecurity that I didn't have the formal education, but at the same time, I was seeing our technology come up and how quickly the music industry was changing. When I got in the music industry, everything was still gate kept in such a crazy way. There was no information online to learn these things. And sadly, I didn't have any mentors that I should have been asking these questions. And maybe I did. Maybe there was people in my life that were willing to support me back then. But I saw so many people get shut out that I really maintained a fake it till I made it attitude. And it was so important for me to hold my own when I left Live Nation and stay strong and get the business so I could feed the mouths of my team.
Yeah.
I really had to keep the fake it till you make it thing going. Now, I should have never built, like I call it Lemmon 1.0. The first mistake I made was I hired people that I was needing to look after, never people that were really able to take a load off me or help my business. And so that was a fail. Lemmon 2.0 now is kind of what it came during the pandemic. We're in
2.0 now, not 3.
I would say we're at 3.0 now.
Are we? 2.99? Okay.
Yeah. And I think the third time is a charm when it comes to scaling and building. And I'm really taking my time this time. But the second time, we didn't really get there. But after the global opportunity came to an end, it was supposed to be a 1-year contract. It was so successful that it kept going. We were involved in it for about 5 years. And then when that came to a close, I was mentally destroyed, burnt out. The pressures on me were intense. I had a $500,000 overhead with my business. And again, I didn't have any real support. And so I decided to shut things down and move out to Vancouver, which is where I'd always wanted to be. And that was a very hard decision to kind of scale back after I had worked so hard to build. But I had also evolved so much during that time. I learned so much internationally and tried to bring those skills back to Canada. And I was just met with walls. What worked for me internationally in business did not work here. And that for me was a bit of a wake-up call. Like, wait, why was I able to flow so easy? I obviously had a big project behind me. It's not the same as Lemmon Entertainment, but it was all a lot. It was the first time in my life I started to have severe panic and anxiety attacks, experienced depression for the first time in my life. And so it took me about a year to kind of scale Lemmon Entertainment down, and then made the choice to move out west where I always wanted to be. And that is where Lemmon 2.0 started to ignite. And when we transitioned from the live entertainment space to, at that time, I think the business became very confusing for people because we were doing a lot of things. I was also offering, I never learned anything about this business. So when someone hired Lemmon Entertainment, we were doing a very good job of working for that brand, that company. But what I found was that we were giving more than we were necessarily contracted for. So if someone thought we were doing production and we were also handling artists and dressing room and doing all this stuff, it's not valued unless somebody can understand and value what they're getting. And so that's when I started to break Lemmon Entertainment apart into more divisions, to help speak to the client group that I was working with and help them understand the difference of the live production, which Lemmon was very known for, and separate that from a lot of the agency service, the marketing, the creative things that we were doing when asked, but we weren't necessarily being valued for.
Okay, so there's literally 3 things. I'm going to try to remember them all that I want to break down with you real quick. Number 1, hearing you say that, it's not surprising when you talk about I had this version of tenacity and all these things that happened for me. I made for myself because you were very calculated, which just took me back to what struck me when you were talking about just being in Edmonton and leaving Edmonton, that you knew I needed to do this for 2 months for free, and then I'm going to be there for 3 years doing this kind of work, and that's what it's going to take. Like you, a lot of people don't have the ability to see very far past their own nose in those kind of choices at that age, which you clearly did. So I'm not surprised. It's kind of cool to see how that sort of stayed through your success, your ability to, be very planned and very thought out and analytical like that is pretty impressive and pretty awesome. The second thing I wanted to point out that you had just said, just about the business itself and changing. Actually, I'm going to come back to that one after. So then the other one that I think that really sticks out to me is you talking about the pressure and what it was doing to you. And I think there is so much pressure and thin margin, whether you're an artist, whether you're in the business side, and how people handle it. And I know like one of the things that you've got under your umbrella, whether you're doing it informally before, that's very formal now, is your Lemmon Foundation and the things that you're involved in supporting, which I guess I'm going to make the assumption that some of that initiative has come out of your own journey and battles with your own health and in the industry. Like under that, I'm assuming you've got, I remember being so impressed on social media. I saw you had the Fit on Tour kind of initiatives, and just the obvious, like, because we've all grown up with these stereotypes, right, in the rock and roll of what life on tour might look like, and just the abuse of our own bodies and our own sleep habits and eating habits, and whether it's like the party all night type thing. And then people get surprised when they hear about these bands that are like they're in bed by such and such a time, and they only, their green room isn't full of crazy orders. It's full of like fruit and vegetable platters and special organic food and all this kind of stuff. The way people they're starting to take care of themselves, and you've been a part of that. But I'm curious how much you want to talk about what that stemmed from what happened to you, because the downside of the hill isn't what usually gets talked about. We usually get on these things and just talk about that fantastic trajectory up.
Sure. No, the culture when I got into the music industry, again, this was before we were connected online, was awesome. It was rock and roll. It was full of these beautiful humans, but now as I reflect, I realize how many of them were broken humans and how we all kind of came together. But to give you some examples, on the road, if a band member decided to buy a green juice, he would be shamed and bullied by the rest of the crew on the bus. A day off, you were expected to be in the hotel bar drinking together and spending your money on more booze. And I prominently remember a somebody that I toured with tell me that he used to lie to the crew in the band and say that he had to go call his grandma, but really he just wanted to go for a walk and check out a local museum. Like it was not okay for people to kind of break away from just the touring culture and the rock and
Yeah.
roll and the drinking. And I think when I got into it, there was a lot more information about what a lifestyle like this does for our health. And there were men I could tell that really wanted to make changes and do better, but they just, you had to fit in. And I learned really early how to fit in on a bus and in a backstage area and make sure that I wasn't doing anything out of the norm or interrupting anything. But as I started to see it with the men, I was like, this is ridiculous. And I chose to, because I became in more of a leadership role. And it's why I started Lemmon Entertainment, was like, I want a space where people, I'm making them go to spin class on a Friday, or taking a day to work from home and do their laundry so they can catch up from the event they did that weekend. Like, I wanted to create the environment that people felt safe to be themselves, do the great work they're doing, but also take care of their well-being and their health. Even if that's just a walk outside, there shouldn't be so ashamed for it. So Fit on
Yeah.
Tour was the first kind of thing that came out of it. And that's because my team was leading a lot of festival and touring productions where, besides the Lemmon team, we were responsible and could have impact on everybody else. So, it was just something that came with anything Lemmon did for a long time and was our standard that we were able to extend to others. And through that, started to see the reactions and how grateful people were and the stories people were sharing and opening up about. And then concurrently, we got more connected online, and I could see there were some organizations trying to make a difference. And there's people that really were like noticing the support that our industry needed. I really early saw a lot of production people that I worked with die or get sick at way too young of an age, mostly, and their diet was beer and Red Bulls. And I was just, it was all, I was seeing it just far too often. And it was just like, wow, we can control this. Like, we can make a difference here. So yeah, again, I started doing it in my productions. When I tried to move and find a way to work with the rest of the industry to make a difference and make a change, I was met with a lot of pushback. And that comes down to there's just not budgets, or there's not money to look after the well-being of everybody. And for me, that wasn't a good enough answer either. I've seen a lot of, again, poor leadership, poor budgeting. It ends up affecting those that are in the execution of it all. Because I had played both roles, I knew a better job could be done in the strategic planning to make sure that, shifts are shorter, the breaks are different. It does take a lot of work to set up something to look after somebody's well-being a little more. But for me, it's like, no, these are just basic work standards. Like, none of these people need any special treatment. We just need to, support a little bit and make it okay. And again, I didn't get a lot of support in those areas. I also, a lot of my programs where I tried to align myself with other industry places, they just they thought Lemmon was making a lot of money off of the initiatives we were doing, or they would meet me with comments that just were so shocking to me at the time. And so I ended up forming the Lemmon Foundation because I thought, okay, if my passion projects need to move under a formal not-for-profit to be taken seriously, that's what I'm going to do. So again, that's something I ignited. But yes, I personally had never experienced anything in terms of mental health until the end of my global touring cycle. And I would say the end of Lemmon 1.0, where I did, that was failure to me, having to let teammates go, people that I thought that I would hold on to forever. But I started experiencing severe depression, anxiety attacks, started hurting myself physically. I had a very supportive partner at the time that helped kind of push me into the right directions, like getting therapy. But then I would go to therapy and they would talk to me like I had a 9-to-5 job. They didn't understand the music world at all. So I was already feeling very misunderstood day to day in business. I was just learning to ask for help for the first time, both in my business, but also personally, and feeling misunderstood even then. And yeah, that was very, very difficult, and kind of made me see how okay, now I have a personal story to this. I should be able to make a difference through the Lemmon Foundation, and started to, when I scaled down Lemmon Entertainment, moved out to Vancouver. It's beautiful out here for wellness. I formally introduced a wellness side to Lemmon and its umbrella, and started to learn a lot about that space.
Well, that's awesome. And I appreciate you talking about that. Of course, I think it's interesting how you mentioned a couple of times the challenge of being misunderstood. I think when it comes to talking about mental health in all areas, not just music, in business, like the rhetoric is around that it's like we sort of accept it like mental health, like a health concern, just the same as other health issues, which have always been supported in business and in insurance and in all of these kinds of interwoven things. But people still aren't willing, for various reasons, either to talk about it openly with coworkers for the reasons that are there, even the challenges to going and actually being authentic with a therapist or a psychologist. Like you talking about that just kind of like, so for me, I finally went and got diagnosed adult ADHD. Was told very quickly, like, because of your age, you've literally actually been dealing with this with your whole life. You didn't know it, and got diagnosed ADHD burnout. And my thing that keeps coming up in therapy is being misunderstood. So I just found that really interesting that you say it, because I realize now because so much of the work has been having to go backwards and pull the threads and undo assumptions, inner dialogues that you have with yourself, narratives that you created. And one of them, I think, is that I'm always misunderstood. And going through therapy and realizing, A, it prevented me from going to therapy for a long time, and B, maybe I actually wasn't. How many perceptions and narratives was I writing for myself because of this, but nobody talked about it. And it's funny, like in a completely different way, but similar to a conversation I had with my last guest, Arlo Maverick, about race, about getting to a point in our societies where we think, because it's the information age, the information is out there and we think we're doing better. As a society, as a community, we're doing good now because everybody's talking about it, and there's these little initiatives, and there's a mental health day, and there's something in Canada, all these things. But then to be honest about how slow the actual change really happens if we don't stay persistent with it. So I guess I have two questions that come out of this for you, Jessica. One is, what are the opportunities that you see, like the easier low-hanging fruit that maybe are being overlooked, that people, particularly maybe in this industry, should be looking at, whether it be for their wellness or where people probably need to start telling the truth the most, in which area? Let's maybe just start with that. Like, that's a question I have for you and your experience.
Yeah, I would say one of the things that I've been very stubborn to doing for my own mental health, but implemented this year, that I think is the easy step for everybody to take, is rage journaling. I think sometimes we hear about, like, especially musicians stuff, we all use writing as outlets and things like that. But rage journaling,
I like the punk rock callback there, by the way. That's a great punk rock callback for you.
Yeah,
I can appreciate it.
Literally, just, you don't even have to be able to read your words. But I sit down, some people do it in the morning, some people do it at night, and I put a 10-second timer on my phone, and I just, if there's anything in me that is negative, I'll start there. But I find within the first couple sentences, I'm saying just things that I'm grateful for and doing whatever. The exercise is just forcing yourself to write for 10 minutes straight, and it can be a bunch of scritches, because especially you mentioned ADHD, which I believe I am undiagnosed, but likely have as well, it can be hard just to, like, write nicely. So this can just be scribbles, and you keep up with the thoughts in your brain, and that's very helpful and something that everybody can do. Something that I'm working on developing with the Lemmon Foundation is just a tool that will help people who are ready to maybe give themselves an hour a week with therapy, or want to explore the mental health journey a little bit. Is a tool that will help people understand the different types of therapy out there and which one's right for where they are on their journey. What I didn't realize is there's so many different types of therapy, and the ones that I started with, they were not a fit for me at the time. Everyone, or a lot of people, are familiar with CBT therapy, cognitive behavior.
Yeah.
That literally was assigning me homework at a time where I was buried in work. And so the thought of, like, to get better, I had to do this, like, exercise, was just tearing me further away. now I'm at a place where I think I could take something like that on and build those skills a little bit because I'm at a different part of my life. So I think another thing is people to really, they don't have to jump into therapy, take the time. There are resources online to start learning about the different kinds and try to find something that could be the right match for them. And for me,
I just want to say that's great advice,
go ahead.
by the way, just real quick, because similar advice I had gotten was you have to find a therapist that's the right fit for you. And it's not like petty shopping around for someone to tell you what you want to hear. It's just that I learned from experience. Like I would go into a room, and that's what also took me a little while. I'm like, this person isn't the right fit for me. Like it took me my third try to sort of land it and be willing to hear that from somebody and then go through it, which is similar to what you were saying too. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, exactly. The person is another factor, but that's the thing is I feel like sometimes we just say therapy is one thing and there's actually so many. The one that has saved my life, and you've brought it up a couple times, just different patterns that we have or decisions that we make subconsciously. But there is a therapy called EMDR.
Yeah.
I never remember what it stands for.
Rolling your eyelids. It's rolling your eyelids around in your head, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. As way as you can. And that one is great for anybody who does have deep traumas from anything in their life, because it actually reprograms your brain, and I don't know the scientific terms, but also your thought processes and the things that, like you said, them being misunderstood and what we tell each other can all come down to a belief system that we have so deep in our brain, but EMDR fixes it so fast. So
you brought up two things. You brought up two things there, which are great. Like one is you had used the word earlier, validation. And so when you say we have these deep things that are programmed, validation is the programming that we seek through our formative developmental years, which is why whatever happens to us as children is so incredibly lifelong, right? And we end up in these patterns of looking for the same validation, even if it's wrong for us. And I think that's very key. And when you're talking about EMDR, and I've heard it talked about a couple times as a resetting and a rewiring. And this is sort of where I needed humility to sort of like look at my own life these ways, is to admit that there's things that are just connected in there. And I don't know how they got connected. And I'm not as, I like to think I'm really smart and I'm really good. And to admit that I can't undo all of those by myself is maybe what the hardest thing was for people. But I think what is important to understand is we all feel whatever version of pressure and stress, and the thing we don't want to give up, the weaknesses we don't want to show that make it hard to make the choice to get better. So I just wanted to point that out, and also to say that I'm really happy for you to hear you say like you've found some of these things and been able to work on some of these things and to feel better.
Yeah, it took me down to absolutely rock bottom before I was able to start getting better and kind of learning a life with these new skills that some people develop much earlier in life, but I feel like I'm just learning how to share emotions now. Like it's okay to be angry, be sad, be all of these things that I never was on this journey to where I was business wise. So I've always been an advocate for mental health. In my own way, I'm not loud. I don't like to put myself, I'm not well spoken. I think I'm a terrible communicator. My partner says otherwise, but
your partner's right.
I'm going to continue to really learn about the space. And what my hope is that under the Lemmon Foundation, we're going to be able to support the entertainment industry with a lot more resources specific to individual well-being, and hopefully help with some funding for some of these therapies, because I do hope we'll be able to make a larger impact in our space one day.
Okay. But you're heading into 3.0. You've talked about, we're like rising from some ashes. We've had a little time to work on it.
Yeah.
You continue to be committed to causes, which is one part I really love about Lemmon Entertainment. So let's head to the finish line by talking about the things that are coming up, and the thing that you and I had talked about a little bit, and whether it's just the Music Day in Canada initiative or any other sort of one that's on the horizon. If you want to talk about, I think it would be awesome, because I love the fact that you haven't been deterred from continuing to invest in causes, which is great.
Yeah, Music Day in Canada, started last year. When we reignited Lemmon Stage over the pandemic, we started to get a lot of demand for more showcases in different markets across Canada. And because that program is kind of, again, more of a passion project that I ran and invested my own resources in to make happen, there wasn't much of a business model there to scale. So we kind of sat back and thought, how can we take a similar live experience approach but make a larger impact for Canada while still supporting the artists in these communities? And that's when Michael from our team came up with Music Day in Canada. It would allow us to activate multiple events at the same time and start to support the different communities and hopefully work with the music organizations in those communities to hear, okay, what are your challenges, and where we can make custom plans for each location on how to just support them. In some cases, that's just amplification of what's organically happening there. So this is our second year, and our goal is to start telling the music stories of all of these locations on more of a national level. So we're partnering with media partners across the country to do that. Lemmon Stage is going to be offering a 3-month coaching program to any of the performers at Music Day in Canada. And we also use the event as a kind of a networking space. We really try to listen to the communities. What are the goals of some of the music professionals, the venues, the individuals, maybe artists that aren't necessarily performing, and try to facilitate just like a fun, nice networking space, because that's what's always happened with Lemmon Stage. So yeah, that is going to take place on September 27th this year, which is a Saturday. And we just started to talk locations, and we're very happy to say that we've got some support from Alberta Music in Edmonton. So really, really happy that my home city will be a part of the program this year, and excited to find out what we are going to do there.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. Then I would obviously encourage everybody to keep their eye open for where those things are. When you sent me some of the stuff to read on it, I just loved right off the bat. I'm like, there's such a battle right now and a lot of varying opinions on just how to support live music in general and that culture and what impact it should have on us. Just so many different opinions and things, but not enough action or not enough things. Everybody deciding what has to be the right version or not, to me, matters less than start with some version of something.
Yeah.
So that's, I think I could just sort of see, like, let's just do this thing. And you did it once, and now it's like, can we grow it? Can we expand the vision, and does it apply further?
Big visions, but gotta start smaller, I think, to sell it to some of the big wallets that want to support us even more, because I think there's potential for Music Day in Canada to have the big music festival, and to have an online program that allows music fans all over the country to tune in and support. And our campaign's already over 3 months long, and what we're really trying to do is not only shine a light and spotlight the talents in these communities, but also actively help them with the next steps on their journey. Through our partnership with Lemmon Entertainment and others.
This is the thing, and this is why I'm so happy to hear it, and I am like so much wanting to see this thing take off the way I'm pretty sure your goals and aspirations for it would have it happen. Because let's just take, for example, in Canada, something that has now become a pretty massive push in the sports world with CBC Sportsnet, Hockey Night in Canada, starting Hockey Day in Canada years and years ago, because
didn't even think of that. Such a good one.
Because the sport had changed. It used to be all Canadian, and we weren't worried about developing our hockey players or communities, but we've seen the sport of hockey become global, so there's less, it's more competitive to continue that, but you have to start with good development at every level. And what Canada used to always have was a rink in every town across Canada, and it became the center of community too, so it's a really easy target to hit. But that's that initiative, right? It's not, and the marquee is like, these towns are going to compete in a contest. They're going to get exposure on CBC and Sportsnet, and then hockey teams are going to come and play a game. NHL teams, like that's the marquee, right? But the real meat of what's happening is the belief that we have to keep building the place it happens, which is in a community of every size, everywhere across the country, if you want to continue to have hockey be developed and be a culture staple for us. And I think music's the exact same thing. Like there should be an invested in thing at that level for this music day in Canada of live music and fostering the development in every town of every size across the country. So I'm going to guess that your vision is that big anyhow. So I find that really exciting.
No, it makes me very happy. I didn't even think about the hockey day kind of thing, but that's a good little case study for me to point to when I'm pitching it to people to support.
You can have it for free. It's yours.
I really feel that the biggest thing that I've seen as a problem in Canada is there are a lot of great organizations trying to help some of the problems in the industry. There's also so much talent that are aware of the problems that they're seeing facing young talent, but unfortunately anybody that's kind of trying to make anything happen, it's happening on too small of a scale, and we're all competing against each other for the funds that can actually lift up or help solve the problem. So my hope is that Music Day in Canada can just be an overarching trusted program that everybody that's already doing the great work can all kind of attach to, and we will really listen on a very market to market basis of what the challenges are and try to sort and put resources where they need to go, because we can't keep competing for the same funds at a small level, because as you've seen, those little companies, they just are unable to sustain. It's too much for any of us to solve on our own. So we've really all got to align to do it. And the producer in me feels like it's got to be a fun experience, and it's got to attract the people and the artists first. And then, the kind of dry, not-for-profit part of it can hide behind the scenes and get some work done. So I'm excited to
That's great.
To get out there, and we just have to decide. I'm not sure which location I'm going to end up at this year, but because I can only be at one of all these
you have to make a choice.
I'll have to make a choice, but maybe it'll be Edmonton, and maybe I'll get to see you in person.
Oh, how lucky would that be? Like that would
That'd be
just
awesome.
be icing on the cake. I really hope I get a chance to see you this year, but I'm not going to pressure you to choose Edmonton. But I am going to pressure you to choose Edmonton. But thank you for your time and being willing to sort of walk through your story from the start to getting to where you are, following your passions. The fact that you said you've been able to live the dream multiple times, which is really incredible, and how we can be authentic about how crushing some parts of that are, that when you admit I got to live the dream, the other side of it, which I think is an important story to tell, and yet you're still going, which is inspiring and should be inspiring for all of us. So I appreciate hearing all that. I appreciate your time and your support, and you've been very sweet and kind to me on top of it all as we talk, which is always really great. And at the end of it, I'm actually really happy that we just got to connect again. Selfishly.
Oh my God, likewise. And this was like a therapy session for me, because I haven't gotten to really go back and talk about my journey for a very long time. So I appreciate your time as well.
It's been great. Okay, I know we're going to talk some more, but thank you again, and I wish you all the best, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens with Music Day in Canada as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Hey, I'm Alexi. Stick around for post-fame with me and my dad.
Super impressed? That's code for you didn't think I sounded very impressed?
No.
Okay, fair enough. I'll give myself a little attitude adjustment live and on the fly. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening to you. You've already enjoyed the evening outside a little bit. Maybe does that make you a little tired now, or does that make you feel? What does that make you feel like mid-evening?
Mid-evening. Okay, well, for context for people listening, I just did a cheeky little 5-kilometer race with some people. I don't know, it makes my...
But you thought it was a fun run.
I thought it was a fun run.
It was a race for them and a fun run for you.
Everyone's like, just come for enjoyment. It's a run, not a race. I'm like, okay, and I've been to these in the past, you know this. No, it was the Runners of Edmonton, and people were like, yeah, So like my body, I'm not feeling good this evening. Not feeling good. But like my mind feeling great, feeling energized, and I'm just like happy it's like summer and it was still light out and I could be out at that hour and feel like it was daytime. That part is quite amazing. So thankful for that.
That part's true. That is very nice. We went. I left the office yesterday to walk to our lunch, and I was very excited because it just had that feeling of that thing that where we live, we wait all winter.
Hmm.
So is just to come out and be like the confidence of it's warm and all that stuff. All that stuff.
Leaving the jacket in the
Okay,
car.
well let's yeah, like, or not even bring it in the morning. Like,
Yeah.
just have the absolute gumption to leave it at home. It's just the most incredible feeling. Those are the small wins. If anybody wonders what it's like to live in Edmonton,
That's it.
that sums it up. Is like our highest highs are the day we have the gumption to leave our jacket at home. In the spring, it's the best. So, okay.
Yeah.
Episode 16, Jessica Lemmon, Jess, as I confirmed in the podcast, was
Yes.
still on the table for her and I to talk about.
Awesome.
So absolutely. So that was a fun conversation for me, and not a fun conversation in some ways, because I knew she was gonna allow me to ask hard questions and talk about hard things, but fun because I got to catch up with her, and
Yeah.
that and again, like, you haven't seen the video of it, like you only listen to the audio, right? Like that's
Yes.
what you
Yeah, the
do
podcast,
before
yes.
these things. You just hear the audio of it, so you wouldn't know that those entire conversations, like the one with her, she still has such a huge smile on her face. I guess that's my favorite thing, is that we did talk about some tough things, and she still kind of has a smile on her face and kind of happy still
Yeah.
to interact around it and
Yeah.
tell the story. So I find that a really energizing and inspiring from guests that we have when they are like that. But I don't know what I'm hoping that comes through for you, like when you
Oh,
listen.
no, I was
What
just
do you
gonna
pick
say,
up on?
like, I feel like the last few episodes, I've been like, oh my gosh, you just mentioned what I was gonna say. But, oh my gosh, you just mentioned what I was gonna say. Yeah, I was gonna say,
Whoops.
like, no, I love it. I like that we're on the same wavelength so often. No, I was gonna say, and it's what I said to you before recording, was like, the thing that stood out most to me, because that's usually what I like to write down first when I like listen to a podcast, is kind of what we've discussed in prior episodes with like what is being a woman in the industry and like in the different aspects. And I think it's like evident that that's is like what's gonna stand out to me. But I was like reflecting on it today and tonight, and I was like, oh, I just found it so fascinating that when she was telling a story about when she got her first, what she thought would be that breakout with that little tour, and then
Hmm.
it had a very
Hmm.
frustrating ending and stuff. Like she was being just had the raw truth out on the table, and I thought that was just really cool because I think a lot of the time when women share those experiences that make being a woman difficult, a lot of the time they won't give that full truth. It's just like they're kind of like
It's a little glossed
it's a
over
little glossed
still,
over, and I think
because
it's kind of what
they're trying to manage. Do you
yeah.
think it's because, I'm sorry to cut you off, because do you think it's because they're trying to manage still what could come of them telling the truth? Because probably
Gosh.
from your experience, like, that might not get received well in the
It is
places you
that, and I
want
think
it
it's
to.
also like I think it's a handful of things, including the fact that it's like something to be very blunt, it's just like a lot of the time it's like when women have shitty experiences, they don't want people's perception of them to become shitty because they tell that experience.
Yeah,
Right? Like they don't want
yeah.
things to, and so it gets glossed over, or they put a
No, that's a good point.
positive spin on it. And I think every woman deals with that all the time. But what I
Yeah.
thought was interesting is that she was just so raw about it and was like, this is exactly what happened. I was mad then, I'm mad now. This was crappy. And I just like, I love kind of that bluntness. And I love that she was able to be that blunt, but was like, kind of like would laugh after each sentence. And I don't know if it was because it's like a
Yeah,
little awkward
yeah.
for her, or because she's just kind of accepted it and been like, how like stupid. But like no matter what kind of the reason was, for that. I just like I loved the combination of the two, and I didn't even get to see her face. I'm sure she was smiling as well, but I just love the
Yeah.
combination of like that, like here's my truth and here how like here's what being a woman in this industry is like, but also be like, haha, ugh. Like
Yeah, well, I don't think it was like sometimes that's like a defense mechanism
mm,
for people, right? That you sort of just build in subconsciously. And I didn't feel like it was that. I think it was, I can laugh about it
yeah.
now, and telling the truth about it is not, I don't know what I don't have actually the right phrase to end that, but it's not, it's not right now the way I'm telling it the way it was then for me. So
Mhm.
I can maybe laugh or something.
Perspective.
So, but I mean, those are good observations. Like we've had guests, right, who were willing to be vulnerable about the challenges of race, gender, sexuality, like
Mhm.
all of these things. Even, guests who are just being vulnerable about the challenge of like failure or feeling
Yeah.
like it's all going to go away. Like whatever the thing that is or felt like the bottom or the hardest thing to get over for them, and some of them larger global universally shared issues maybe than others, but
Yeah.
I always want to be able to at least look at, like, I want to go down a layer at least of like, because like just before we hit record, like you were saying, we were just chatting for a second, and you're right, like it's like we have sort of talked about some of the subject matter,
Mhm.
like big picture already, but when you take it in through Jessica's perspective, right, of how she had this as part of her story of all the things she built and all of the, and I sort of had just been writing the intro before you and I are doing this recording,
Mhm.
and just sort of drawing the line between the fact that like every reward and plus has its challenge and its downside that goes with it, right? Like there's always a shiny side to the coin and then a dirty side to the coin, it
Yeah.
seems, for a lot of people, and that's kind of universal. But in this particular way, I guess the layer I wanted to get down is to see through her eyes what that meant, right? To go through those things, and it was
Yeah.
industry, not artist. It was in a couple of different fields, and she gave very specific examples, like you said, which I think
Mhm.
really affected the way you could interpret. And I guess at the end of it, the reason I wanted to really evaluate them, like, because she had concerns too, like we talked, is like she doesn't want she doesn't want to be a downer episode,
Yeah.
right, for everybody to listen to. And I listened back, and I don't feel like that's the way it was. I feel like what I take away from it is I had all of these challenges up against me, and I had to sort of figure some things out, and I got successful because of whatever traits were mine. For her, she knew how to take skills, quickly develop them.
Mhm.
Every job she did, she used as an opportunity for something more and something new. And so she was very crafty and skilled that way in building her career, and she should be really proud of that and own that. And yet, it seemed like what she wanted to communicate in her story is that it's not just that some of these stereotypes still exist, right? It was more than that. It was that the reality is sometimes that for every big thing I had to fight for and achieve, and I'm so proud of, and as she said, I've lived the dream like 3 times over of what
Mhm.
she wanted to achieve. It all of it carries it with it all of this baggage, if I can use that
Mhm.
term, even though it's been overused. Right? There's baggage with all of it, and that's just the truth. And she was willing to tell the truth, and that's what I loved the most, is that
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be super universal, and it doesn't have to be super specific either, but it just has to be the truth. So,
Yeah.
yeah. I probably took 3 times as long to get to that point as I needed to, but I had to work it out.
No, I like when you work things out because they come out really clear.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Um, let's talk about what we were talking about in the car real quick, because we like to share our current music obsessions.
Mhm.
And my TikTok doom scrolling has landed me on this guy that I'm sure a lot of people may know about, and maybe a lot of people don't know about. His name's Steven Wilson Jr. And I think it's this combination of how people go viral. It's not like he's doing anything brand new. It's just his combination, right, of kind of dark Americana, like bluesy folk, almost the way you'd find an indie version of it. Whatever you like, you could hang a bunch of labels on this thing depending what direction you would personally come from it. But he's got, of course, an interesting look to him. He's got this incredible southern, like, drawl kind of vocal where, you know, it's like that guy is only opening his mouth halfway the whole time he sings, but it sounds so cool. He's got all of that and incredible guitar playing. And it's all about his little live performances. And so, like, my favorite TikTok was this. Have you ever seen the comedian Bert Kreischer?
I have not.
He's a big guy with a beard that has a giant beer belly, and he does all of his stand-up comedy with no shirt on.
Oh,
have you ever seen a big white guy with a beer belly that does comedy with no shirt on?
Yeah.
Okay, that's Bert Kreischer. So he has a podcast, the Bertcast, and it was called the Bertcast Unplugged, and he has different artists on, and I saw Stephen Wilson Jr. doing a song on that, and it made Bert Kreischer cry, which apparently isn't that hard, but it was fantastic. So then now I've just let the algorithm take over. So
love that.
That's my new obsession. So you're gonna hear it in the car
more
sometimes now. Just giving you the heads up.
Is it going on the podcast playlist then, I presume?
Yeah, I think I'll
pop a favorite or two.
I'll take the song that he played. I'll take the one that he played on the Bertcast that I just talked about. It's called I'm a Song. It's incredible by Stephen Wilson Jr. So yeah, it'll go on the Spotify playlist for sure.
Cute.
What about you? Nothing?
Oh,
You got nothing this week?
You know what? It's not new, but it's someone that's like Olivia Dean has been on playlists of mine, and then I was like finally noticing, I was like, oh, she's like now on quite a few playlists and like multiple songs. And so I kind of did a deep dive into her music, and I think she's just like such an easy listen. This is her. But I think she's a very easy listen. She's one of those like few artists, because when people ask what my music taste is, and I like joke, I'm like, oh, it depends on my mood. It really does. Like, and I feel like you know this, but but there's very few artists for me that I can listen to in any mood. And she is like one of the very few who checks like most of the mood boxes. You know what I mean? Like, no, I wouldn't listen to her when I was like working out or going for a run, but like most other times.
Have we talked about this before? That like, cause you have this mood app. Have we talked about that your Spotify needs to connect to your mood app so the algorithm can like know where to start on any given day?
The day lists are starting to pick up on it, because every Monday, Wednesday, like Friday morning, whether I'm at the gym with you or not, every single day list is like hip hop rap, like frat house Monday morning, because I listen to like hip hop rap at the gym. But
you never ever told me that. Now, we've been doing this for 4 months, and I never knew that was what was going on in your AirPods. Because on the way, you're playing me this like Bo Shacker is what's his name?
Bo Stalick. That's terrible of me. Just assume we're still there. The whole time we're at the gym, that's where I think we're at. I don't know that you're like you're dropping like the gym. But I made a joke to like my boyfriend the other day, because it's like on the way to the gym, it's like my cutesy kind of like country folk, kind of like maybe a little bit indie some mornings on the way there.
Yeah.
And I get there, and then it is like the like hardest rap, like yelling loud, like some of like Childish Gambino's like songs where he's just like screaming the whole time, and it's just in my ears with like sound canceling. So it's like that's all that I'm like getting fed. And then on the way home, I'll like play like Olivia Dean or just some like the like cutesy country songs, and I'm like do. And then he's like, "That's not right."
No wonder your moods are up and down. Like you're just fueling so many different things there.
Funny.
Well, that's good to know. See, everybody gets to listen in on me still learning new things about you.
Oh
every now and then. I don't have it all figured out.
Now when you know that when we start to talk mid-set and I take my AirPods out, that's what's getting paused.
There you go.
There we go.
I'll see if I remember next time then. Okay.
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 Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Love you.
Love you. Bye.